We're watching it in the NBA right now where you got to weather some bad seasons, but if you build it right, you can play for the NBA title like the Thunder have done, like the Pacers have done. And that's, but when you have bad owners like that, it's rough. We will get to that coming up. Speaking of the Tom Thibodeau thing, Tom Thibodeau fired yesterday.
Right.
I can't say I wasn't shocked by this because at some point, how are you going to take the next step? And you can't fire the team. You can't fire the players. And they got 7 guys that are locked in for and they're not really tradable contracts. You kind of have to bring in someone that can work and get more out of this team because it's not like they've already built the roster. And you know what it reminds me of? Football fans will remember this. It was back in 2001. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers under Tony Dungy had played in 2 or 3 straight NFC championship games.
Right.
And they could not get over the hump. And they fired Tony Dungy, which everybody's like, what are you doing? You just fired Tony Dungy. The guy's been in the NFL NFC championship game every year. Well, they hired John Gruden, and they won the Super Bowl the next year. And, he revved up. The defense was built. Tony Dungy had built the defense. And the defense with Derek Brooks and Warren Sapp and the Tampa 2 and Monty Kiffin, it was lights out. But the offense was stale, and the offense could not deliver. And they made the move, and they won a Super Bowl out of it. And, Tony Dungy landed with Indianapolis and did a great job there with Peyton Manning. We know the story of Tony Dungy. But there was a moment where the organization decided, what's best here? We can stick this together. Or do you go out with the Tom Thibodeau being a defensive-minded head coach and say we need more an offensive-minded head coach to maximize this roster?
I think with Thibodeau, it was just, for me, right, although great coach, there was always talks about him utilizing certain players a little too much, but also it was always his way or the highway, right? Whether it was to a fault or not. He went with his game plan, whether, that was the issue with it. Whether it was exacerbating these players, playing them too much, not going to the bench, or using players, why are we using this guy right now? That was the thing with Thibodeau. It was his way or the highway, and I don't think Dolan really liked it, and Dolan's got the power, whether you like it or not, Knicks fans. So I think overall, New York's probably going to be happy he's gone.
But let me just say it this way, like Dungy, I don't think it's a punishment to Thibodeau. I don't think it's we need something different for this roster than him.
I think he took him as far as they could.
Right, exactly.
Right. I agree.
That's where
with
Tony
his way, for sure.
And that's what Tony Dungy was. It was, we love what you did, but we need a more offensive-minded guy. We have a chance to get John Gruden. He can rev up our offense to join the defense, and they won a Super Bowl. Now, I'm not saying that's going to happen here with the Knicks. That's what it reminds me of. You're not punishing the coach. Firing is punishing. But at the same time, we've hit our ceiling with this group. We can't fire the team because they're all under contract, so we have to change the voice in the room. Yeah. And I think and they better hire the right person, though, because this thing can blow up in your face in a big way.
That's the thing I'm fearful of, is he just got them to the finals for the first time in, 25-plus years?
Yeah, the conference finals, yeah.
So conference finals, Eastern Conference Finals. That's the thing with this is I totally agree with you. Maybe just need to voice the room, kind of like what happened to the Buccaneers. That could be the case, but their window is... It's now. It's next year. It's maybe a year after that.
In the NBA, you kind of the way team building kind of works, and we're seeing it with the Knicks. We see it all the time. We saw it basically with Denver this year. It's you sign your guys either in free agency or to max contracts, homegrown. Right. You make your margin moves. You make a big trade. You trade all your picks, which is what the Knicks have done. So they don't have cap space. They don't have picks, and they don't have really good contracts they can trade. So what can they do? They can fire the coach.
It's all going to be predicated because I remember
fire the players, like you said. You can't fire the players.
Well, because I was
not their fault.
I was doing a morning sports radio show when that all happened, and I remember the same conversations that they better get this right because because the Buccaneers were a laughingstock before Tony Dungy stabilized them, much like the Knicks. And you bring in a grown up like that, and Tony Dungy was a defensive minded coach who it was my way. Built the defense, but the offense was just never good enough to get over the hump to get to the Super Bowl. But there was an NFC championship game. I remember there was like 10-9 or whatever, and we have to get the offense better.
Sure.
And it worked. And I'm not saying this is going to work with the Knicks. I'm just saying there is a ceiling at some point with a defensive-minded coach, which they need. You feel like whoever comes in. I've heard the name Dan Hurley from UConn. Right down the road. Of course, turned down the Lakers job last year, but it's closer. It's not to the West Coast. That name's out there. There's going to be names. Michael Malone from Denver. Just a new voice. And
Jay Wright.
Yep.
But
Nova Knicks.
Nova Knicks, absolutely.
Those names. There's a job he'd come out with.
But I'm assuming, much like with Tony Dungy and John Gruden, there's a name that they're linked to. And maybe the NBA is saying, hey, look, You can fire him now, but wait till the finals.
Yeah.
Don't take away from our NBA finals. Hire the next coach later. But I understand that. But again, I understand the Knicks being shocked by this. But at the same time, there is some logic to it, and we've seen it work before.
And speaking of seeing it work before, I have a good one for now and for Noah. In 2003, there was a team that won 50 games and got swept in the conference finals. That was the Detroit Pistons, and their head coach was Rick Carlisle.
Yeah. This is true.
You don't go to the conference finals, win 50 games, and get fired. But that's what happened to Thibs. I don't know if they won 50. They might have been like 48. But you know what? You don't have a great season and fire your coach. But what do the Pistons do?
Yeah.
They hire Larry Brown, and they win the title next year.
Yeah,
so I get it. It's a brutal business. I always say the best way to get fired in the NBA is win Coach of the Year.
Well, and Tom Thibodeau, let's call it how it is. This has happened before. In Chicago, they got as far as
Minnesota
this.
too.
And this, exactly, Minnesota.
Well, the ceiling never got that high, but
his ceiling is only so high. And I think that's just the way he coaches teams. And like you said, having a new voice in the room, he's going to be huge for them on the offensive side of the ball because although the defense might change up a little bit, there's that foundation that this team has that I don't think they're going to lose. They're not going to get worse.
Well, and look, as much as everybody loves Tony Dungy, and I like Tony Dungy, I mean, but even when he went to Indianapolis, had Peyton Manning and Marvin Harrison and Edgerrin James and these unbelievable Reggie Wayne. They still only won one Super Bowl.
Right.
And they had a hard time getting out of the AFC. So some coaches do have a ceiling, and they're too conservative. You know, the Cowboys head coach's dad, Marty Schottenheimer, could never get past the championship game, and he was very conservative. And there's a history of that. And Dungy, I mean, you would argue that with all that talent and all those Hall of Famers at the Colts, that Tony Dungy, should have made a Super Bowl with the Buccaneers with those defenses. Warren Sapp, Derek Brooks, John Lynch. I mean, those teams were unbelievable, but never made it. And then even in Indianapolis with Manning, Marvin Harrison, Reggie Wayne, Edgerrin James, Hall of Famer, they still only won one, and it was against Rex Grossman and the Bears.
Rex Grossman, the Bears, yeah. Then they went to one and lost to the Saints, correct? Another
That's correct.
one. Yeah,
Sean
Drew
Payton.
Brees.
Yeah, she probably should have. And again, I love Tony Dungy, but to the Thibodeau thing, to bring it back to football, sometimes there is a ceiling on a coach, and that's because the Knicks have been such a laughingstock for so long. It's easy to say they're going to get this wrong, and they might. And you might have just got rid of the best thing you've ever done, which the Buccaneers wondered about. But John Gruden won a Super Bowl. We'll see who they hire. I think it's going to be a big name who kind of gets along better with Karl Anthony Towns and Jalen Brunson in the room. I think Jay Wright would be a really intriguing name, by the way, with all the Nova players there. The conversation surrounding Micah Parsons is going to be one that is had. Brian Schottenheimer met the media yesterday. He's the new head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. And Cowboys edge rusher Micah Parsons apparently will attend the mandatory minicamp next week. But will he be at the start of training camp in July? Now, Parsons put out a social media post last night. Here it was it was actually from a tweet from Clarence Hill that he retweeted and posted to, and said, because the tweet said, "Will Micah Parsons show up at minicamp?"
Right.
Because he's in a contract stalemate with the Cowboys right now, and so that was the question that Clarence Hill posed to his followers. And Micah Parsons reposted it and said this: "I haven't missed a minicamp in 4 years!" ! Even though the contract is not done, I have teammates and a playbook. I'm prepping as if I will be on the field for the first week of camp, but it's in the owner's hands. I'm ready to win the Super Bowl." So obviously the money sentence there is it's in the owner's hands.
I'm ready to get paid too and win a Super Bowl.
It also indicates that he will not be at training camp if the deal's not done, which, we saw Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb over the past summer.
Yeah. And it worked for his buddies over there, too, because they got paid big time, referring to CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott.
This is another spot where Jerry Jones has given the control to the player and the agent. And, this could have been done years ago. This Micah Parsons deal could have been done 18 months ago, and it wouldn't cost as much. We know that any deal, the Steelers are about to deal with this, I think, with T.J. Watt. The Myles Garrett deal getting done ahead of it means anything you're doing with Micah now starts with a 4. Right. Annually. You're into the 40s. Could have been
with his age and his 30s. Production, it's going to just have to be.
Yeah, and you understand Micah Parsons. So here is Brian Schottenheimer on Micah Parsons.
I would assume. Mike and I talked a couple of days ago. Again, he's doing a little bit of traveling. But again, everything that he and I have talked about, I expect that he will be here. And like I said, I say it each and every week. Mike and I have had great communication, everything I've asked him to do and vice versa. He's followed through on, so I would expect to see him.
All right. right, so expect to see him. And again, but the tweet makes it pretty clear he'll be at minicamp. Now, will he participate on the field in minicamp? Remember, this is a third new defensive coordinator in 3 years for the Dallas Cowboys. This is now Matt Eberflus's defense after Mike Zimmer, after Dan Quinn before. So there is that idea that we need to get together and make sure we're utilizing every and all opportunity to install this new defense and be better at it. Jerry Jones has made it pretty clear with some of the things he said that he wants to see more leadership from Micah Parsons and leading the way with the void of all the veteran players that have moved on. So, Parsons will likely be there next week, but will he participate? And then if he doesn't get the deal by July, likely not to show up at Oxnard, California, which, this is the Jerry Jones way, apparently.
This is it. He waits. He takes his time. It's on his time.
Which makes
and then
0 cents.
And it's more on his dollar. Just plain and simple. You should pay the guy and not say you don't know his agent. Remember that a few months ago? We haven't talked about Jerry in about a month.
If
it's all
only
that time.
If only you could find a strategy in that, what makes sense about that strategy he takes that ends up costing the organization and him more money instead of getting the best players locked up and making them frustrated and having conversations like this on our show that don't seem to make a lot of sense. Also from Brian Schottenheimer yesterday, obviously of the other major conversations that are going to happen this month into July and then into the start of the season will be the potential return of key defensive pieces from injuries, including Trevon Diggs. Trevon Diggs, of course, had the knee injury 2 seasons ago, and then at the end of last year in December had another operation on the knee because it wasn't healing properly, and the Cowboys, according to reports, were frustrated that maybe he wasn't doing the rehab as seriously as it needed to be, and it led to the next operation. Brian Schottenheimer asked about where Trevon Diggs, the all-pro corner, is.
Yeah, it's going good. Talked to Trevon last week. He's down in Miami doing some training, and no timeline for the return, but he had to come back a couple weeks ago to get checked out by the doc, and all signs are positive.
All right. They did trade for Kyer Elam from the Bills, so I guess there's a stopgap there. We talked about the name Jalen Ramsey and Trevon Diggs. You also had that Sam Williams. Sam Williams was the Cowboys' second-round pick in 2022 out of Ole Miss, and he was supposed to be a huge part of their defense a year ago. He got hurt in training camp, tore his ACL. They think he'll be back and is making good progress for 2025. You also have the name DeMarvion Overshown, who, all accounts, it's positive, but Demo, the Agent Zero, remember, this was Week 14 against the Bengals last year, tore his ACL, MCL, and PCL. I mean, he tore the whole thing. And that's his second pretty significant knee injury since entering with the Cowboys. So that's, if you tell any Cowboys fan or even Brian Schottenheimer, I'm going to have a healthy Trevon Diggs, Sam Williams, and DeMarvion Overshown at some point this year, well, that changes what your defensive outlook is with Micah Parsons, with the draft picks you've made and the additions you've made through the offseason. But, man, those are 3 really big ones at corner, linebacker, and pass rush. 3 most important positions on your defense. They're all question marks. And now Micah Parsons, because Jerry Jones is fiddling around with this contract, is as of his tweet last night, is a question mark. Whether he'll be there at training camp in Oxnard to install and master a new defense.
Can't fault the guy. I mean, we've seen this, like I said, in the offseason with CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott, and they end up getting paid a lot of cash. So,
and Dak took it to the last day. Took it to the last day. Or he might have been a free agent this past March and is not. Now he's the highest paid player in all of pro football.